Greetings, magical people. Are you a beginner witch wondering where to begin your magical journey? Or perhaps you've been dabbling in the craft a little or a lot, and you're looking to bridge the gap between your spiritual practice and the goals you have for your real life. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you my most groundbreaking tips on how to plant, tend, and harvest your desires using a combination of witchcraft and manifestation hacks. So if you're curious how you can simplify your manifestation practice and make this next year your most magical year yet, let's dive in and make some magic. If you would like to follow along with what we're going to be talking about in this video and take some notes on some absolutely gorgeous pages that I've designed for you, then I invite you to go to the link below and download your free printable Wheel of the Year cheat sheet, which includes beautiful note sheets so that you can write down what you're learning and take note of the parts that actually resonate with you in particular. So without further ado, let's talk about the Wheel of the Year. So first things first, what is the calendar of the witches? In its most basic form, the Wheel of the Year is simply the solstices and the equinoxes. There are two of each. So the winter solstice is the shortest day and the longest night of the year, taking place around December 21st in the Northern Hemisphere and June 21st in the Southern Hemisphere. The spring equinox is the halfway point between the winter solstice and the summer solstice, when the hours of daylight and the hours of darkness are equal. Here, the days begin to grow longer than the nights. It takes place around March 21st in the Northern Hemisphere and September 21st in the Southern Hemisphere. The summer solstice is the longest day and the shortest night of the year, taking place around June 21st in the Northern Hemisphere and December 21st in the Southern Hemisphere. And finally, the autumn equinox is another time of equal day and equal nighttime hours, but this time the nights begin to grow longer than the days. It takes place around September 21st in the Northern Hemisphere and March 21st in the Southern Hemisphere. So when you put those together into a circular calendar diagram, you get the Wheel of the Year. Pretty much every ancient culture around the world has incorporated the recognition of these seasonal checkpoints into their spirituality and culture in some way. This is because in the ancient world, people didn't have modern heating and cooling systems or freezers for their food, so their survival was entirely dependent on planning to plant, tend, harvest, and preserve their resources each year. Naturally, this directly influenced their spiritual beliefs and practices because, at the end of the day, all spirituality originates from our human need to feel supported by our environment. So here's a magical tip for you. If you're curious to discover if your spiritual practice resonates with the seasons, try just exploring some of the traditions associated with the solstices and equinoxes in the area where you live. I've lived in New York for my whole life, so I resonate with the Northern Hemisphere dates for the Wheel of the Year very strongly as we have all 4 seasons here. So at least from a seasonal perspective, the traditional Northern Hemisphere themes for the seasons work well for me. So why are there now 8 Sabbats of the witches? You may have noticed that modern witches tend to celebrate 8 times of the year rather than just the 4 explained above. This is because the Celtic neo-pagan religion of Wicca has influenced a lot of the customs of modern-day witchcraft. It's Celtic neo-paganism that brought the cross-quarter celebrations into the mix. Cross-quarters are simply the halfway marks between a solstice and an equinox. It's believed that the ancient Celts celebrated these in-between times because they represented the high point of each season, whereas the solstices and equinoxes marked the beginning of each season. The Celtic cross quarters are Imbolc, Beltane, Lunasa, and Samhain. Imbolc is the halfway point between the winter solstice and the spring equinox, and in the Northern Hemisphere, it's celebrated around February 1st. Beltane is the halfway point between the spring equinox and the summer solstice, and it's celebrated around May 1st in the Northern Hemisphere. Lunasa is the halfway point between the summer solstice and the autumn equinox, and it's celebrated around August 1st in the Northern Hemisphere. And lastly, Samhain is the halfway point between the autumn equinox and the winter solstice, and it's celebrated around November 1st in the Northern Hemisphere. Here's a little witchy tip for you. If you're fairly new to the whole world of witchy paths, it's a common misconception that witch and Wiccan mean the same thing, and that only Wiccans are entitled to celebrating the Wheel of the Year. But this is far from the truth. A witch is simply a person who works with their intuition and the forces of nature to create intentional changes in their life. Even though they're not all traditionally called witches, these kinds of people have existed in literally every time, place, and culture throughout human history. Another common misconception is that Wicca is an ancient religion. In fact, Wicca was invented in the 20th century by a man named Gerald Gardner, who gathered ideas about ancient Celtic culture and kind of mushed them together into a reimagined version of what he wanted to believe his ancestors may have done. People like Gardner fought to have witchcraft legalized by having Wicca recognized as a legitimate religion that could be protected under law via freedom of religion. So even though not all witches are Wiccan, many of us have a lot of respect and appreciation for that religion because it helped to reintroduce the world to pagan concepts, and it also helped with witches' rights in general. So why do some witches celebrate the Celtic pagan Sabbats even if they're not Wiccan? Well, there's a lot of different reasons why a witch might choose to do anything, including celebrating the cross quarters. Witches are all unique and different, and many of us like to cherry pick from a variety of different cultural traditions from all around the world, Wicca being no exception. In the Western-influenced world, many people whose ancestral customs were taken away through cultural conditioning and colonization of any kind have rediscovered witchcraft through being introduced to Wicca in the 20th century. And likewise, people who do consider themselves Wiccan also borrow aspects of totally different cultures' magic, making the religion attractive to colonized peoples whose ancestral cultures have been or can be reasonably incorporated into the overall concept of Wicca. So what we have now are Wiccans who practice witchcraft traditions from all over the world, as well as witches who are not part of the Wicca religion who have adopted traditionally Wiccan traditions into their practice as well. If you're wondering, personally, I am not Wiccan, but I do incorporate all 8 seasons because to me, it's just such a darn good idea. By remembering to turn to the seasons for wisdom 8 times a year rather than just 4, it's helpful to stay closer tuned into the energies of nature. And since my path is often about using seasonal checkpoints as opportunities to plan out the planting, tending, and harvesting of my goals and manifestations, why not check in as often as possible? Another reason many witches today use all 8 Sabbats is because in modern society, it happens to be some of the cross-quarter festivals that have survived from ancient times all the way through the years of Christian suppression of the old ways. Therefore, many of us are already accustomed to tuning into the themes of those holidays like Halloween, which is a Christianized and then later secularized version of Samhain. Here's a witchy tip for you. Wondering if it makes sense for you to celebrate the cross quarters? Admittedly, when I first started my Wheel of the Year journey, I wasn't sure how to connect to the cross quarters because I identify as African American and it felt a bit odd to be celebrating in these Celtic neo-pagan ways. A lot of it didn't seem relatable or necessarily appropriate, but parts of it rang true for me, so I decided to further explore those parts in my own natural way and to respectfully honor and leave behind the rest. Interestingly though, a DNA ancestry test years later showed that my family is actually 36% European and possibly from Celtic and Nordic origins. So maybe on some energetic level, that's part of the reason I felt so deeply drawn to the Wheel of the Year, including the cross quarters. But that's neither here nor there. It's my honest belief that all Earthlings, regardless of where your traceable DNA came from, are naturally attuned to the cycles of the seasons. It's a universal law that applies to everyone in some way, shape, or form. It's for these reasons that I personally choose to use the more open-ended names for cross quarters rather than the Celtic names. So for Imbolc, that would be February's Eve, Beltane would be May's Eve, Lunasa would be August's Eve, and Samhain would be November's Eve. Witches and pagans from all walks of life celebrate various combinations of the Sabbats, and you can feel into what works for you on your own unique, authentic path. So how can observing the witch's calendar benefit you in real life? You might be thinking, that's all super fascinating, but what do I do with that information? Well, I'm so glad you asked. This is where my passion and expertise as a witch really comes into play. Once upon a time, I was a wandering spiritual seeker with a strong intuition, but no real sense of direction in life. I had been dabbling in things like meditation for inner peace, tarot cards to read the energy of a situation, the law of attraction to manifest a more fulfilling life, and even moon phases to track my physical energy as well as my energetic manifestation power. But for some reason, none of that really seemed complete on its own. I found the moon phases hard to keep up with in my busy life, and I didn't know why I was still experiencing so many mood swings and inconsistency in my manifestation efforts throughout the year. I was feeling like I was generally headed in the right direction, but I was having a really hard time feeling truly centered, grounded, and empowered. I kind of felt like I was lacking guidance, but there was no one person or group that I felt had all of the answers that I personally needed all rolled into one. I wished that the clouds would just open up and the universe would hand me a blueprint for a roadmap for my life. Spoiler alert, it did. One busy late summer day, I noticed a changing leaf on the tree outside my office window. And it occurred to me that I had been so busy trying to learn and manifest all of the things that I had barely been honoring the passing of the seasons, which had always made me feel intuitively connected even as a small child. I looked at the calendar for that day and saw the small print, Autumn Equinox. And almost as if I was recalling a deep sense of truth that had always been there hiding in the background, I remembered that the concept of solstices and equinoxes had always inspired me for some reason. I decided to do a quick online search. What is the spiritual significance of the autumn equinox? And that led to articles about the Wheel of the Year, which became my obsession instantly. I began reading, watching, and listening to everything I could find on the subject, and I discovered that some witches based their entire spiritual practice around the seasonal checkpoints. Even though I was out of my element with some of the Celtic religious beliefs that I was reading about, I felt so at home with the concept of seasonal living and connecting to nature in a cyclical way. There weren't many resources on it at the time, or even today, that I found, but the aspect of the Wheel of the Year that spoke to my soul the most was this idea of the plant, tend, harvest, compost cycle as it pertains to our manifestation journey. Having entered the witchy space at a time in my life when I was carving out new paths for myself in everything from spirituality to relationships to career options, I needed a sense of structure that I could count on to plan my life around. The wheel provided that for me, and I began to feel more stable and grounded, and I noticed that I was manifesting my goals with a lot more consistency and having a lot more fun along the way. So here's a witchy tip for you. Use your phone's calendar app. If you're looking for a tangible way to connect to the energies of the seasons in your manifestation journey, start by marking the dates of the seasonal checkpoints in your calendar with an alarm or a reminder. You can begin your seasonal practice by simply checking in with your thoughts and feelings and observing your own life at these 8 checkpoints. These Sabbats can also be the perfect times to celebrate what you've manifested thus far over the course of the year and set new intentions for the seasons ahead. Here's how to celebrate the Witchy holidays, whether or not you resonate with the Celtic style. These days, there's a lot more online resources sharing about how a solitary practitioner, or a witch without a group or coven, can connect with the wheel of the year alone. But back in the day, I had to use just my own intuition and a few borrowed ideas here and there to discover how the observation of these checkpoints really fit into my life and spiritual practice. Even today, it's easy to find YouTube videos and TikToks about what colors to decorate with, what foods to cook, what gods and goddesses to represent on your altar, but it's still often unclear how any of those fun little practices can actually help you improve your everyday life and achieve your greater goals. Well, that's where I come in, because for the past 8 years, this has been my obsession. The fact is, a witch, or a spiritual person in general, doesn't have to believe in gods and goddesses, or to even have an altar, in order to harness the healing and creative powers of the seasonal energies. You don't have to know the history or traditions that are typically associated with ancient paganism from any culture to harmonize your life with the seasons of nature. Those things can be really helpful for inspiration, but most of it is speculation, and a lot of it might not make any sense for you in your current lifestyle. To me, a witch is someone who listens to their intuition about how to connect to the natural cycles of the universe as they create their desired reality with the elements that are available to them in this life. I believe that magic is having the power to write your own story. And it's for this reason that I've created a fun and practical system for manifesting my ideal lifestyle through seasonal living. So here's another witchy tip for you. Seek answers from within. Are you wondering how to celebrate each season? Start by asking yourself what each season represents to you right now. What memories, feelings, and ideas come up when you think about each time of the year? Chances are you already have subtle rituals or traditions that you naturally gravitate to, whether you're consciously aware of it or not. Like when I was a child, I would always look for the first autumn leaf and collect leaves to press in my journals. Or in the early winter, I would anxiously await the first snowflake to fall and would decorate by cutting out little paper snowflakes and decorating my room with them to mark the beginning of the season. Of course, I had no knowledge of neo-paganism at the time, and in fact, I considered myself a member of an Abrahamic religion as a child. But when I learned what solstices and equinoxes were, I began marking them in my calendars and my journals and marking the day in some personally meaningful way. These kinds of little rituals, as well as our dominant memories and feelings about seasons, can tell us a lot about who we are, what we desire, and how to honor our evolving journey as we manifest our next level lives. So here's where it gets real. When I learned how to start a grimoire or book of shadows based on the witch's calendar. When I first started my year in a day journey, I began by taking notes in a journal about the interesting things I was learning online about the seasonal energies. And then the second year, I used those notes to find 3 main themes of each season, and I turned those 3 themes into journal prompts that I could use to discover more about myself as I continued to release old toxic patterns in my life and replace them with healthier and more fulfilling ones. I also had my very first real garden that year, and when I looked at the seasonal themes all together, I realized they perfectly mimicked this plant, tend, harvest, compost cycle over the span of each year. The winter solstice is a time of pausing to process the events of the last year and taking a rest to receive the blessings you've manifested and give yourself a clean slate for the new year. February's Eve is getting into a self-care routine or establishing a daily ritual that consistently connects you with your desires, values, and intentions for the year. The spring equinox is a time of getting more clear on what you desire to create, making any announcements or declarations about them, and beginning to make more tangible plans. May's Eve is a time to start taking more tangible action on your goals and intentions and beginning to make it a bigger, more real part of your lifestyle. The summer solstice is about celebrating your courage for the lifestyle shifts you've made thus far and giving yourself a big pat on the back. August's Eve is a time to check in with where you're at with your goals and ask yourself what needs to shift as the second half of the year gets well underway, possibly rerouting to be more aligned with your intentions. The autumn equinox is a time to acknowledge and be grateful for the results you've created thus far, and to start deciding how these manifestations can be set up to continue supporting you even more going forward. And lastly, November's Eve is a time to do a sort of final roundup of how your year went, and most importantly, to release yourself from any unaligned commitments, toxic coping patterns, or stale belief systems that you may have picked up along the way. Witchy tip for you. Grab your printable Sabbats planner. I've created a Modern Witches calendar grimoire for you because journaling through the Wheel of the Year helped me to achieve so many of my goals for my career, my finances, my emotional healing, my relationships, and so much more. So I've decided to turn my favorite journal prompts that I came up with into gorgeous pages that you can download and print out to use for yourself. If you're a witchy or witchy curious person, chances are you've asked yourself, what is a book of shadows or grimoire really? And maybe you've tried to figure out how to create one for yourself. It can actually be quite daunting even for the craftiest ones of us. When I first started my path, I felt like I should have a grimoire since journaling is such a natural part of my lifestyle. But I had no idea where to start making a proper book of shadows or what to put in that book that would actually be relevant to my real life. And I was anxious about the possibility of drawing out a lovely page layout and then messing something up or writing down something that wouldn't end up resonating with me in the future. That's why I eventually discovered that I could design printable layouts and use them to record my authentic thoughts, feelings, and experiences as I explored the Wheel of the Year and explored my magical path. And now I'm inviting you to create a fun journal of your own using my prompts and printable layouts. If you want to try some for free, just drop your email address at the link below and I'll send you my Manifesting with the Wheel of the Year cheat sheet. Or if you want to dive in with both feet, you can purchase the full printable journaling kit, which includes information pages, illustrations, as well as lots of prompts and space to write about your own experience. Alright, so let's recap what we've explored so far in this video. The Wheel of the Year is the calendar that most witches use to connect with the energies of the seasons. The popular use of the 8 Sabbat calendar by most modern witches is a combination of the solstices, the equinoxes, and the Celtic-inspired cross-quarter celebrations, which are the high points of the 4 seasons. You don't have to be Wiccan or of Celtic ancestry to benefit from living a seasonal lifestyle. It's a natural law that applies to all creatures. And when we align ourselves with it in a way that resonates with us on a personal level, there is nothing we can't achieve. The themes of the seasons can be used to help you plant, tend, and harvest your intentions, and to compost or recycle any stale vibes for a fresh start in the next year. You don't have to celebrate the Sabbats in any prescribed way. The seasonal energies can be most empowering to work with when you use them to better understand who you truly are and who you wish to become. Make your year and a day adventure easy, fun, and effective by using the themes of the seasons to create a journal or planner for your desires, intentions, and manifestations. The winter solstice, also known as Yule or midwinter, is the shortest day and longest night of the year, celebrated around December 21st. Regardless of what part of the world, which spiritual path, or which historical tradition we look at, just about the whole of the human race seems to agree that the coldest, darkest time of the year holds an inherent sacredness. It makes perfect sense during the time of year when the sun seems to be at its weakest and the earth is hibernating, that we would spend the long evenings indoors, celebrating that which keeps us warm, cozy, and alive. What is your relationship with the winter holiday season? What are your most potent memories, most prominent traditions, and most notable connotations about this time of year? A light in the darkness. Because the winter solstice season is the darkest time of the year, it's our natural response to emphasize its opposite in order to feel a sense of balance. The sun is our source of warmth, light, and growth, and in the winter time, we can become acutely aware of the absence of those energies. Traditionally, the bonfire or hearth fire would be tightly gathered around during this time of year, and that sense of warmth, light, and togetherness is the basis of the winter holidays. It is for this reason that fires, candles, and electric lights are some of the main symbols of this season. In much the same way as we turn to the hearth fire when the sun is away, so too do we turn our own inner light on when the light of the world is at its lowest. Now is a time to meditate on what is truly most valuable to us in this life. Some questions to ask yourself around the theme of light in the darkness. What is the significance of light in your winter lifestyle and/or celebrations? How do you celebrate the light this time of year? How does it make you feel when the days are short and the nights are long? What can you do to achieve a sense of balance? Rebirth. So many mythological heroes who represent rebirth are said to have been born around the winter solstice. This resonates with our observation of the sun during this time. We can say that the winter solstice represents the death of the sun, and after the 3 days when it appears to be at its lowest point, it begins to rise again. It is, in a sense, reborn, and we can celebrate this solar new year. This is the perfect time to celebrate the end of one year and the beginning of the next, to pay homage to the year that's ending and welcome what is to come. Some questions to ask yourself around the theme of rebirth. Which aspects of the past year's journey do you feel are ready for a death and rebirth in your life? What are you honoring and leaving behind? What do you intend to bring with you into the new year to grow stronger as the days grow longer? Generosity. In times past, and even now, the dead of winter could be a very harsh time for humans. If someone didn't have enough resources to survive, they would have to rely on their community to share of their abundance to keep everyone warm, fed, and entertained. In much the same way now, even those of us who are fortunate to have a warm home and food on the table can still experience a sense of lack this time of year. Not only is there seasonal depression from the lack of sunlight, but due to our cultural expectation of gift giving and togetherness, some folks may have reason to feel isolation. It's important that we all do our part to make the season warm and bright for our loved ones and greater community. Some questions to ask yourself around the theme of generosity. What is your experience with the theme of generosity this time of year? How can you expand your ability to help yourself, your loved ones, and/or others feel warm, bright, and supported in a way that's healthy, joyful, and sustainable for you? The wheel of the year has turned once more, and it's time to welcome in our first seasonal checkpoint of the new year, February's Eve. It's the midpoint between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. Known to Celtic pagans as Imbolc, this quiet little celebration is what I like to call the best kept secret of the solar festivals. While it's one of the most overlooked seasonal celebrations in modern culture, it's an absolute gem for the self-care enthusiast. With the big fall and winter holidays behind us, February's Eve, celebrated around February 1st, is literally the breath of fresh air we need to settle into our resolutions and intentions for the year to come. Unlike holidays like Halloween and the Yuletide season, which were converted from nature-based celebrations into religious holidays and then adapted back into popular culture, the wonderful thing about February's Eve is that while it does have correspondences with the Christian Candlemas and the Celtic pagan festival of Imbolc, this celebration really never gained as much popularity and thereby never gained as much commercialism or controversy as some of the other holidays on the calendar. Fittingly, February's Eve is generally celebrated as the time of calm, quiet, and cleansing, all of which might be desperately needed for many of us after the dark themes of autumn and then the hectic winter holiday season. Whether you look to the Celtic pagan themes of Imbolc, or the more Christianized incarnation of Candlemas, or Bridget's Day, which seems to be celebrated by both some Christians and some pagans, or if you're like me and you just tune into the natural energies of the time of year without religious connotations, the biggest themes always seem to be cleansing, purification, and a fresh start. In this video, I'll share with you some of my personal favorite simple, low-key themes and traditions for this late winter season. Accepting the present moment. For many of us, the winter is a strange combination of hibernation and overstimulation. While the popular winter holidays have us bustling around like crazy, in colder climates like mine, we also tend to want to hide away indoors and kind of think of going outside almost as a chore this time of year. After the intensity of the darkening months and the overindulgence of the holidays, we may be left feeling a bit of seasonal depression. Right now, nature is providing us with the perfect moment to pause and reset our vibration before energy picks back up again for spring. By focusing my self-care and self-development practices around the most important themes of the February's Eve season, I've been able to connect to my intuition and create the type of calm inner space that will help shape my life as each year progresses. Healing and self-love. A lot of us have a way of putting the needs of others or ambitious goals before our personal self-care. Now that the obligations of the winter holiday season are over, it's time to focus on yourself. Doing a dietary fast or cleanse is a great way to cleanse your body from the inside, and you'll be surprised how changing what you put into your body can help with mental, emotional, and spiritual clarity as well. February's Eve is also the perfect time to start a new meditation practice or schedule in some time for regular reading, exercising, or journaling in a peaceful setting. I tend to find this time of year as a great time to start reading or studying a subject that I want to help improve my life with in the year ahead as well. Are you still holding on to anything physically, mentally, or emotionally from last year that just isn't serving you? Now is the time to become quiet and calm and create space for your intuition to shine through in new ways. Something that I think I've said a million times here on my YouTube channel, as well as in my podcast and my blog posts and my courses, is that the whole point of the Wheel of the Year, for me anyway, is to have not one, but 8 different opportunities over the course of the year to get back on track with your desired goals and intentions for your life. Rather than feeling obligated to be doing it perfectly in January because that's the start of the Gregorian calendar year, This way you have the option of doing it in stages. You can set intentions perhaps at the winter solstice, and then start gradually feeling into what your daily rituals are going to look like in order to support those intentions as you create a sustainable new lifestyle for the year to come. So if you're looking at your life from January and realizing that there's still a long way to go to really shift into your next level self, there's no reason to beat yourself up. You can just take this cross-quarter checkpoint as a reminder to take whatever the next steps are while feeling into what your wants and needs truly are as you experience things. And the spring equinox is just going to be another reminder to take whatever the next step is after that. It's a beautiful, gradual unfoldment that when you look back at the end of the year, you will realize has been immensely powerful without being overwhelming. Keeping the inner light aglow. This time of year is about remembering and honoring the inner life force energy of Mother Earth and of ourselves. While depending on where you live, January and February, and gosh, even March if you live here in Western New York, can be the actual coldest and most miserable wintry feeling days of the year, this is a time to remember that regardless of what the weather happens to be doing, the days are still growing longer, and inevitably, true spring weather will have to return. In much the same way, we can think of our inner light as growing stronger as we gradually come out of hibernation and re-emerge as our next level selves as the year begins to shape up. A popular tradition of the Imbolc celebration is to light a candle and place it in the snow or in the barren ground outside, symbolizing the eventual thawing and reawakening of the life force of the land. This candle can also represent your inner light, which is now in the beginning phases of planting the seeds of intention that'll blossom into your manifestations as the year continues to evolve. You can take a moment with your candle to hold space for that potential and to acknowledge where you're currently at with your New Year's intentions, and take this time to dream about just how big and beautiful those intentions have the potential of becoming as the sun waxes towards fullness and the earth gradually begins to bud and flower around you. February's Eve is a wonderful reminder that while spring weather may seem far off depending on where you live, nature is still creating beauty in our lives, even now, and it deserves a closer look. I would love to invite you to try my February's Eve season journal prompts. You can grab my beautifully designed journal prompt pages as a printable download, or if you want to dive in with both feet, I invite you to join me for my full year in a day journaling adventure on Patreon. This is where you get access to all of my seasonal journaling printables on how to use the energies of the seasons to manifest fulfillment in your life through what I like to call the plant, tend, harvest, release cycle. The wheel of the year has turned once more, conjuring memories up from before. The mother a circle, the father a line, the journey a spiral as these two combine. As bodies in heaven turn and revolve, so do our spirits as we do evolve. Each year we go round the wheel of the year, we move closer to love and farther from fear. And as the cosmic clock does turn, along our own journey, we live and we learn. On this sacred day and night of equal dark and equal light, we start the light half of the year and bravely step beyond our fear. Spring equinox, a time of power, when the days grow longer by the hour. It's the witch's season of coming out, to cast away that old self-doubt. Like new seedlings, young and fragile, we vow to grow up strong and agile. We plant our seeds of intention and embrace this season of reinvention. Now's our time to start anew, to do those things we've been wishing to do, to see more of what we venture to see, and be more of who we aspire to be. As the days grow longer than the nights, we expand our horizons to greater heights. In winter, we grow our intuition, and now our dreams grow to fruition. As the daylight hours grow, we say farewell to the last of the snow. And as the tulips begin to bloom, so does our power in the goddess's womb. Enthusiastic like the sign of Aries, and pure of heart like children or fairies. The inner child comes out to play, unafraid to say what it needs to say. Magic is the power to write our own story, and that's what we do in this season of glory. Blessed be this coming spring, and may all life's pleasures the season bring. The new year is getting well underway, and we're now arriving at the first quarter of the Earth's path around the sun. The spring equinox, also known as Ostara, is the time of year when the daylight hours, which have been slowly growing longer since the winter solstice, finally catch up to the hours of darkness. Equinox means equal night, denoting that both the northern and southern hemisphere will have 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of darkness on this day. After the equinox, the daylight hours will begin to grow longer than the nighttime hours, and springtime has officially begun. In the northern hemisphere, the spring equinox takes place around March 21st, and in the southern hemisphere, it's around September 21st. In the modern witchy and neo-pagan community, the Sabbat tends to be called Ostara because the religion known as Wicca is where most pagan reconstructionists derive their Wheel of the Year. In the 1900s, Wicca was invented by a coven of neo-pagans known as Gardnerians after their leader Gerald Gardner. They took what they could gather from historical accounts of various pre-Christian spiritual practices in Europe and designed this modern witches' calendar. They derived names for the solstices, equinoxes, and the midpoints in between, using ancient European concepts as the inspiration. The name Ostara is said to come from Northern Europe, referring to the name of a goddess or nature spirit who ruled over themes of fertility, rebirth, the hour of dawn, and of course, springtime. It's also believed that Easter is derived from this and other pagan traditions, including perhaps the super ancient Mesopotamian mother goddess, Ishtar, who many later cultures used as the inspiration for their versions of mother goddesses. Because many of us modern witches were separated from the pagan teachings of our own ancestors over the course of history, some of us have found it helpful to borrow aspects of the Wiccan Wheel of the Year for our contemporary practice. This is why it's very common for the words Ostara and spring equinox to be used interchangeably, even by witches and pagans who do not otherwise identify with the Wiccan religion. But almost every culture around the world have their own traditions for the spring equinox that we also draw inspiration from as well. So whether or not the subject of ancient gods and traditions interests you, the universal themes of the spring equinox season are some of the most fun, relevant, and actionable of the witches' calendar. We can all feel connected to the idea of shaking things up and getting inspired this time of year. I like to focus on 3 major themes of the season in my practice: emergence, recalibration, and the inner child. Emergence. We've all endured the long, dark, introspective days of winter, and it's time to finally come out and begin emerging from that cocoon. The spring equinox is the time when the first seedlings begin to emerge from the soil, bravely stepping out into the world after their incubation period. Seedlings are small, pale, and fragile when they first emerge into this unknown world, but they stretch bravely out of the soil with the promise of the potential for growth, expansion, and eventually seeding a legacy for the year to come. Much like the seedling, we may or may not feel totally ready to have that springtime coming out party, but we must embrace the vulnerability, trusting in ourselves and trusting in the universe. It's time to step up and begin taking tangible action toward the new version of ourselves that we've resolved to evolve into this year. 2 questions to ask yourself around the subject of emergence. Which of my resolutions am I ready to start taking action on? What might that look like or feel like? And which of my resolutions are still feeling a bit fragile? Do I need to reevaluate my goals and intentions? Or do I just need to take some baby steps towards those goals until they feel more tangible? Or do I just want to dive right in? Recalibration. As with both the autumn and spring equinoxes, this time embodies a major shift between darkness and light. This time, we're shifting from an abundance of darkness to an abundance of light. The darker half of the year was a time to turn inward towards self-reflection, domestic matters, and shadow work. Now, we're making the transition into the light, bright days of the year. It's time to ease ourselves out of the cocoon and step forward with a lighthearted sense of renewal. For those of us who really tend to hibernate during the winter, we'll need to make a conscious effort to ease ourselves into the more social, outgoing days of the bright season. Some questions to ask yourself around the theme of recalibration. What did I learn about myself this winter that I wasn't as aware of last year this time? How can I use the information gathered during this self-reflective time of winter to step into a bolder, more confident, and outgoing version of myself this spring? The inner child. This time of year is often represented by babies of all species. Seedlings, chicks, bunnies, lambs. We tend to decorate in the springtime with pastel colors and engage in playful activities. This is all a way of celebrating our own inner child. The inner child archetype is part of the self that can be evoked at any time to help remind us what fun is. In adulthood, we have so many responsibilities and ambitions that we can often lose sight of what really makes us feel happy, playful, and alive. Let this time of year be a celebration of just that. Some questions to ask yourself around the inner child theme. Simply, who is my inner child? What does my inner child love about life? What do they love to do and experience? What can I do this spring to evoke my inner child into my practice and/or my everyday life? Now, for my seasonal journal prompts, I like to keep it condensed to just 3 main themes to focus on for each of the 8 seasons on the Witch's calendar. But for this video, I really felt compelled to also mention a bonus theme: balance. So if evoking the astrological energies of the seasons interests you, you may also wish to do some moon magic this spring with the theme of balance. The full moon, which occurs closest to the spring equinox, is always in the sign of Libra, which is the opposite sign from Aries, which is the sign the sun is in at that time. In astrology, it's recommended to evoke the opposite sign from what the sun is in to achieve a healthy sense of balance at any time in the year. And it's also interesting to note how the full moons are always in that opposite sign every time. In this case, it's extra relevant to this theme of balance because not only is balance also a major theme of the equinoxes with the whole equal day, equal night thing, but the full moon that takes place after the spring equinox is in the sign of Libra, which itself is the archetype of the scales of balance. This makes sense because the sun goes into the sign of Libra at the other of the two equinoxes, 6 months from now at the autumn equinox. By the way, the autumn equinox is when I include a prompt about balance, but the theme works for both equinoxes. So if my story about evoking archetypes that balance each other out this season speaks to you, the spring equinox, which is any of the 3 days surrounding the 20th of March, the Libra full moon, and the new moon in Aries could all be powerful dates for spells and intention setting rituals for you. My moon sign is actually in Aries, so it makes sense that I always experience some kind of empowering rebirth during this season. If you enjoyed the information and prompts which were shared in this video, I would also love to invite you to grab the journal/grimoire pages that I've created for the spring equinox. You can download them as printables from the Writing Witch shop, or you can get access to all 8 sets of journaling prompts by joining my year in a day journaling adventure on how to utilize the energies of the seasons for manifestation of your desires. The spring equinox pages are also available to some of the tiers on Patreon, which I invite you to check out right here. May's Eve is the halfway mark between the spring equinox and the summer solstice, and it's celebrated around May 1st. In the current neo-pagan community, the Sabbat tends to be called Beltane because the cross-quarter checkpoints, or the center marks between the solstices and the equinoxes, are derived from ancient Celtic paganism. Historically known as Bealtaine, Walpurgis Night, and later May Day, this time of year is known across cultures as a time to celebrate abundant fertility. Spring is in full swing, giving way to summer, and the blossoms are blooming, love is in the air, and this is the time to honor nature in the height of its potency. To acknowledge the life force energy of plants, animals, and people alike. May's Eve is opposite November's Eve on the Wheel of the Year, representing the springing forth of life as opposed to the onset of death. Naturally, a lot of the traditions of the dark time of year are about being deeply insightful, contemplating the meaning of life, and clinging tightly to that which keeps us feeling safe and warm when the sun is at its weakest. But now that we've crossed over into the light half of the year, our spirits are lifted. There's an overall feeling of weight being lifted off of our shoulders. We've had our time to be deep and contemplative, and we're just about ready to sweep away the heavy cares of life and have a coming out party of some kind. The astrology of the Scorpio-Taurus axis illustrates this perfectly. If you look at the Wheel of the Year with the zodiac wheel, you'll notice that May's Eve is right in the very center of Taurus season, and November's Eve is right in the middle of Scorpio season. If we think about Scorpio time as a time of darkness and mystery, and Taurus time as a time of physical vitality and carnal pleasures, then we can see these Sabbats as the peaks of those two opposite energies. It's even believed by some cultures that just as the veil between the worlds is thinnest at Halloween, so too is it thin again half a year later at Beltane. And some say Halloween or Samhain is when souls of the dead leave this realm, and Beltane is when new souls incarnate into the world of the living. Some say both times are fairy times, while others say that Samhain belongs to the ghosts from the realm of the dead, and Beltane belongs to the elves and fairies of the earth realm. Whether or not you take any of these fascinating ideas literally, they're both super powerful times of year to contemplate the important themes of the life, death, rebirth cycle. My 3 favorite themes to focus on in my craft at this time of year are fertility, connection, and the law of gender. Fertility. The spring equinox and May's Eve both celebrate the concept of fertility, but in different phases. In nature, the spring equinox is a great time to start seeds indoors on a windowsill, for example, whereas May's Eve is the time when it becomes safe to bring our plants outdoors, trusting that nature will support their growth. Obviously, this example represents a climate like mine, but you get the idea. The same concept is taking place within our own lives. Any venture of self-discovery that we throw ourselves into right now is likely to prove to be a highly evolutionary experience. And it's likely that the results of that transformation will grow to become evident both on the inside and on the outside. The inner work we've done all winter long is now able to shine out in our decisions and actions for the world to see. So here are some questions to ask yourself around the theme of fertility this season. Which of this year's intentions are already naturally beginning to take form in my life? Which intentions are taking more conscious effort to manifest? And what action steps can I take right now to bring these desires into fruition this summer or in the year ahead? Connection. May's Eve is about making genuine person-to-person connections, and it's time to come fully out of hibernation, to step out from behind the book or computer screen and begin to form personal relationships with nature and with human beings, in whatever ways you feel are most healthy for you. It's time to really enjoy the type of growth and expansion that can only come from hands-on experience. It's a time to find our tribe, celebrate the soul-searching we've done over the winter, and decide how to express ourselves for the world to see in real time. It's time to get outside our comfort zones and let previously hidden parts of our soul shine out into the visible world. Here are some questions to ask yourself around the theme of connection this season. What experiences with events, people, places, and things are on my bucket list for this summer? Which summer intentions are absolutely non-negotiable, and how can I anchor those in right now? The law of gender. As humans, we experience our reality through the union of opposites. Light and dark, inner and outer, thought and form, circle and line, masculine and feminine energy. It's by combining these opposites that we create change in our reality. During the dark half of the year, it was time to imagine, to reflect inwardly, and to dream up the greatest possible self that we could potentially evolve into as the year would unfold. And now that it's the light half of the year, it's time for us to put those dreams into action. The marriage between dreams and actions is the union of feminine and masculine energy, which is necessary to create tangible, measurable results in the evolution of our lives. Here are some questions to ask yourself around the theme of the law of gender this season. What are my beliefs, experiences, and intuitive ideas about the nature of masculine and feminine energy in the universe? What is the potential of combining the positive aspects of each to create change in my experience? So, what are your favorite themes, rituals, or traditions for this time of year? One of the best things about our online magical community is that we get to expand our practices by exchanging ideas with others. So I invite you to leave a comment so that we can also learn from you. If you enjoyed the information and the prompts that I've shared with you in this video, then I would love to invite you to join me for a fun guided journaling adventure for the Maze Eve season. I've designed these gorgeous printable grimoire pages based on the concepts we touched on in this video. You get instant access by downloading them from my shop, and if you would like to dive even deeper into the art of manifesting your goals using Maze Eve energy, then you're invited to join me for this Maze Eve course that I've created for you, where you get instant access to printables on how to harness the energy of this season in your self-care and your self-development practices, so that you're able to give and receive in a flow that's truly healthy for you. Each of these options are linked below. I invite you to come and sit for a spell. The summer breeze has a story to tell about a time at the end of June when the crickets hum a bewitching tune. The summer solstice is on its way, the shortest night and the longest day. A time for tea or wine outdoors on shady porches or sandy shores, for candlelit dinners in the open air and humid breezes frizzing up your hair. The magic of the moment comes when birds sing and crickets hum. The magic is in everything, in the simple moments life will bring. The sun patch that delights the cat, your favorite sundress or old straw hat. The magic is in the patch of daisies, and having permission to just be lazy. The summer solstice is a time of rest, when Earth is offering up her best. When desired feelings become habitual, that's the strongest but simplest ritual. Now's the time to relax and receive, and trust that's all you need to achieve. The elements are calling your name, so join them for this little game. Take pleasure in the simple things and see what magic summer brings. The summer solstice, aka Litha or midsummer, is the longest day and the shortest night of the year. The summer solstice marks the end of the spring and the beginning of the summer season. It's called midsummer because astronomically it's the middle point of the half of the year when the days are longer than the nights. Interestingly though, even though the sun is out for the longest amount of time this week, in many parts of the Northern Hemisphere, including here in New York, the weather is only just starting to feel like true summer. The days will continue to grow longer, but will also begin to grow shorter after this checkpoint. Therefore, it has the vibe of a high energy celebration while also having a bittersweet undertone. It's a time to relax and be very present in the moment and to give oneself permission to relax. The energy of nature is nearing its peak of life force energy before the heat starts to dry everything out. For many of us, the weather is at its most comfortable this time of year, not too hot or too cold. It's time to cherish the moment and relax into the nurturing energy of nature, to simply be. My favorite themes to focus on during the summer solstice season are the magic of the moment, the inner child, and tween times. The magic of the moment. The summer solstice is a time when nature is usually very forgiving. It's finally easy to relax into the open arms of Mother Nature and be nurtured effortlessly. It's moments like this, when we're at peace outdoors in nature, that it's easiest to attune ourselves fully to the present moment. This can be a deeply connected and magical time. When we're fully immersed in the peace, joy, and simplicity of the moment, that's when time seems to slow down or stand still, giving full attention to the heart-centered part of the experience. The magic of the moment can be evoked intentionally any time of year, but it often occurs spontaneously in these gentle days of summer. Some questions to ask yourself around the magic of the moment. How can I commit to giving myself the time and space to be at peace in nature? Which midsummer activities am I prioritizing in my schedule for this time of year? The inner child. Being in the present moment is often linked to the inner child, because in these moments of peace and simplicity, it's almost as if the real world and the calm of imagination are one and the same. It's a time of simple enjoyment, of free creative expression, or of simply being. Some questions to ask yourself around the theme of the inner child this season. What is my favorite childhood memory of playing outside in the summertime? What can I do to re-evoke that inner child's sense of joy and wonder into my life this season? Tween times. Many will agree that these magic of the moment experiences are often times when we will feel the presence of the inner child. Some relate this childlike sense of wonder with fairy energy, or with being visited by the muses. For many, these types of purely inspirational moments often occur during tween times. Tween times are the natural occurrences in which consciousness is shifting to transition from one chapter into the next. The duality of the transition triggers us into a hyper-aware state, and these tend to be some of our most vivid and enchanting memories for the rest of our lives. All of the checkpoints on the wheel of the year are tween times in a sense, and this one is a really potent one. Another example of a tween time is a beautiful sunset. The summer solstice is a tween time in the sense that it's the pause between the days of waxing and waning sunlight, just as a sunset is the sacred pause between day and night. Some questions to ask yourself around the theme of tween times this summer solstice season. What does this term tween time mean to me? What are examples of tween times I remember in my life? So, what are your favorite things about the summer solstice season? Are you planning to journal on any of the topics from this video? If so, I would love to invite you to join me for a seasonal journaling adventure this summer. Here are 2 different ways. First, you can just download the printable PDF files of the grimoire pages you saw in this video from my Writing Witch shop. Your download will include all of the summer solstice information discussed in this video, and plus space for you to write about your personal relationship with the season. You also get access to 4 different printing options: color and black and white. The black and white option is great if you want to save on ink and decorate the pages yourself, and full page binder sheets and a smaller folded book template for junk journaling. You get to print these out as many times as you want for your own personal use. So for example, if you decide to go for binder pages in color this year for an instant option, you can. And then next year, if you decide you want to get more crafty with your journal, you can print out the junk journal templates instead. Doing these same journal prompts each year in different journals or as binder refill pages has helped me and so many of my Writing Witch members to up-level our capacity to experience fulfillment each year. And I want you to experience this as well. Are you also looking to connect with kindred spirits and other magical mavens as you learn to embody your most fulfilling version of yourself this season? If so, I would also love to invite you to join me on Patreon. You'll get access to the 8.5 by 11 binder style sheets on how to manifest your most fulfilling summer. In our Patreon community, we're going to be doing some fun seasonal challenges, as well as just connecting with our kindred spirits weekly with discussion prompts. So I hope to see you there. August's Eve, also known as Lammas or Lunasa, is the midpoint between the summer solstice and the autumn equinox. Celebrated around August 1st, it's known to witches as the first harvest. This time of year, in the long, warm, hazy days of summer, it's easy for us to take it all for granted. But August's Eve sweeps in to remind us that summer does not last forever. The beginning of August is our reminder to pause and acknowledge the beginning of the end of summer. It certainly isn't autumn yet, but it's time to begin shifting our consciousness to make way for the more solemn days of fall and winter ahead. In agricultural times, the first harvest was a lighthearted celebration, a time to enjoy the summer fruits and vegetables before shifting into the more work-heavy harvest season ahead. This is our time to rejoice in the abundance of summer, one last time before autumn sets in for good. So, what is your current relationship with the August Eve season? What has it meant to you thus far? What are your memories, traditions, and connotations about this time of year? My 3 favorite themes to focus on this time of year are abundance, craftsmanship, and transition. Abundance. Late summer is the time when nature is blossoming into its peak stage of growth. Wild and cultivated crops alike are ripe for the picking this time of year. Combine this with the comfort and joy of lazy, hazy, hot days, and we've got a recipe for extreme abundance. Just like we see in nature, this is our time to rejoice in the fullness of life. Some questions to ask yourself around the theme of abundance. What actually is in full bloom in your life right now? Which summer intentions have manifested fully, and what unexpected gifts has life granted you? Craftsmanship. Historically, late summer was not just a time of harvest, but also a time of creativity. While there's still warm weather and abundance of materials and strong life force energy afoot, it's the perfect time to show gratitude for the gifts of nature by creating something with them. Whether it's time to build something to prepare for the cold season ahead, or if it's just an act of free creative expression, this is the perfect time of year to get a little crafty. Some questions to ask yourself around the theme of craftsmanship. What can you craft physically with the gifts you have in your environment right now? What can you craft energetically with the gifts life has granted you this summer? transition. Time to celebrate the summer sun one last time before the days really begin to shorten. This is the first harvest, and of course what we're planting, tending, and harvesting along our self-development journey are our intentions. We sowed the seeds of intentions back in the spring, and now is the time to pause and assess how they've come into fruition thus far. Summer isn't quite over yet, and this is our chance to check in and see how much more fun and growth we can squeeze in before autumn really sets in. Some questions to ask yourself around the theme of transition. How are your summer intentions coming along? Did some come easily while others needed more patience? Did you release any of your intentions in favor of accepting the spontaneous lessons and gifts of nature? What are your final wishes for the summer season, and how can you make them happen? So, what are your favorite things about the August Eve season? Are you planning to journal on any of the topics from this video? If so, I would love to invite you to join me for a seasonal journaling adventure this summer. First, you can just download the printable PDF files of the grimoire pages you saw in this video from the Writing Witch shop. Your download will include the August Eve information discussed in this video, and plus some additional journal prompts for extra clarity. You also get access to 4 different printing options, color and black and white. The black and white version is great for saving on ink and getting to decorate the pages yourself. And then you also get full page binder sheets, as well as a smaller folded book template for junk journaling. You get to print these out as many times as you want for personal use. So if you want to do binder pages in color this year for an instant option, you can. And then next year, if you decide you want to get more crafty with your journal, you can print the junk journal template versions. Doing these same journal prompts each year in different journals or as binder refills has helped me and my Writing Witch members to up-level our capacity to experience fulfillment each year. And I want you to get a chance to experience this magic too. Are you also looking to connect with myself and/or other magical mavens as you embody your most fulfilling version of yourself this season? If so, I would love to invite you to join me over on Patreon. You'll get access to 8.5 by 11 sheets on how to manifest your most fulfilling summer. In our Patreon community, we'll be doing some fun seasonal challenges, as well as connecting with kindred spirits with weekly discussion prompts. I hope to see you there. The wheel of the year has turned at last, conjuring memories up from the past. The mother a circle, the father a line, the journey a spiral as these two combine. As bodies in heaven turn and revolve, so do our spirits as we do evolve. Each year we go around the wheel of the year, we move closer to love and farther from fear. And as the cosmic clock does turn, along our own journeys, we live and we learn. There's something about September that bids me to remember, to take a break from the daily grind, to see what beauty I may find. Now's the time to pause and breathe, to gaze upon the changing leaves. I see my first red leaf today. Tomorrow it will fade away. The autumn season doesn't last. It's here today, then gone so fast. The squirrels collecting nuts and seeds to stash away for winter needs. Chestnut, walnut, pine cone, acorn, pumpkin, apple, barley, sweet corn. The harvest time means gratitude, to have a thankful attitude. Merry meet and gather friends to celebrate as summer ends. The autumn equinox is near, a magical time on the wheel of the year. Waning day and waxing night, we bid farewell to the fading light. A time of balance and calibration, a time of feast and celebration. We gather together now to say we're thankful on this autumn day. Deck the halls with ears of corn, let new traditions now be born. Go pumpkin picking in the fields, Rejoice in what the harvest yields. Pluck an apple from the bough. Be present in the here and now. It's time to turn our gaze inside. Such intuition the fall provides. And as the days begin to cool, the time has come for back to school. A teacher now, yet forever a student. Life's a classroom, and learning is prudent. September plays a sacred song for those who care to hum along. The sun, our father, and the earth, our mother, are forever waltzing with one another. In the forest by the stream, reflections of the colors gleam. Tiptoe upon the forest floor and see what nature has in store. It's nature's time of slowing down as leaves are drifting to the ground. So slow it down, take a breath, remember life shall follow death. The leaves now falling on the earth become spring soil for seeds to birth. And so it is with everything, for life's a cycle, a circle, a ring. We reap what we sow and sow what we reap. The seeds which we plant are the crops we will keep. So walk your path upon this earth. Be grateful for your home and hearth. Merry part we'll meet as friends when the wheel of the year has turned again. The autumn equinox, also known as Maban, is the second harvest, celebrated around September 21st in the Northern Hemisphere. The word equinox means equal night, referring to the way there are 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of darkness on both the autumn and spring equinoxes. But at the autumn equinox, the long days are ending to make way for the darker, colder half of the year. My favorite themes to focus on during the week surrounding the 20th of September are balance, gratitude, and preparation. Balance. Mirroring the way that the darkness and the light are in equal balance, this is the perfect time to pause from our daily shuffle and to do some recalibrating. The checkpoints on the Wheel of the Year serve as reminders to periodically take stock of where we're at in life. Now is the time to look back upon what we've been up to over the summer and decide how we want to spend our winter and which habits to bring in or cast out of our lives as we move into the next chapter of the year. Some questions to ask yourself around the theme of balance this season. Which areas of my life feel like they need to be balanced? What are some actionable steps I can take to create more balance in these areas starting now? Where can I celebrate having already achieved balance? Many refer to the autumn equinox as the pagan Thanksgiving. It's the second harvest on the Wheel of the Year between the 1st of August and the 1st of November. In agricultural times, this second harvest would have been when the hardy crops were brought in to prepare for winter. Long before the American Thanksgiving holiday, autumn has always been a time to celebrate the abundance of the harvest, enjoying the fruits of our labor, and sharing of our fortune with others. Those of us who are into conscious manifestation also know that the first step to attracting more abundance into our lives is to be thankful for the blessings we already have, and to be generous with others. So some questions to ask yourself around the theme of gratitude this season. What are 10 things that I'm grateful for in my life right now, and why are they so valuable to me? What are 3 ways I can share of my abundance with others this season, or in the season ahead? In the midst of celebrating the abundance of the harvest, we must also accept that winter is coming. This time of year, we acknowledge the duality of nature. It's a reminder of the law of polarity. For every summer, there's a winter. For every day, there's a night. For every flow, there's an ebb. For every life, there's a death. For every full moon, there's a new moon. For every ovulation, there's a menstruation. For every element, zodiac, and modality, there's its natural opposite. And for every action, there's required rest. The autumn equinox is a great time to do some fall cleaning, making our lives cozy and comfortable for the colder, darker seasons ahead. As we're preparing to spend more time indoors, so too do we begin to turn our gaze inward spiritually. The autumn equinox, being the transition from Virgo to Libra season, contains the same themes as the September back-to-school concept. Amidst these signs related to being analytical, organized, and open-minded is an excellent opportunity to begin a new academic endeavor. So some questions to ask yourself around the theme of preparation this season. Which areas of my life could use some preparation and improvement? In which subject am I choosing to delve deeper into in my studies? And what can I do to make my home more cozy this fall? So what are your favorite things about the autumn equinox season? Are you planning to journal on any of the topics from this video? If so, I would love to invite you to join me for a seasonal journaling adventure this fall. Here's how. First, you can just download the printable PDF files of the grimoire pages you saw in this video from the Writing Witch shop. Your download will include all of the autumn equinox information discussed in this video, as well as journal prompts and space to write about your own relationship with the season. You also get access to 4 different printing options: color and black and white. The black and white version is a great option for saving ink and decorating the pages yourself, as well as both binder sheets and a smaller folded book template for junk journaling. You get to print these out as many times as you want for your own personal use, so if you want to do a binder in color this year for an instant beautiful option, you can. And then next year, if you decide you want to get more crafty with it, you can print the junk journal templates instead, or the black and white versions, and start painting or coloring in your book of shadows. The possibilities are endless. Doing these same journal prompts each year in different journals or as binder refills has helped me and my Writing Witch patrons to uplevel our capacity to experience fulfillment each year, and I want you to get to experience this magic as well. Are you also looking to connect with myself and other magical mavens as you embody your most fulfilled version of yourself this season? If so, I would love to invite you to join us on Patreon. You'll get to access my autumn equinox themed journal pages on how to manifest the most possible fulfillment for the fall season. And in our Patreon community, we'll be doing our early autumn seasonal living challenge, connecting with kindred spirits and responding to discussion prompts together. So I hope to see you there. The wheel of the year has turned once more, conjuring memories up from before. The mother a circle, the father a line, the journey a spiral as these two combine. As bodies in heaven turn and revolve, so do our spirits as we do evolve. Each year we go around the wheel of the year, we move closer to love and farther from fear. And as the cosmic clock does turn, along our own journeys we live and we learn. Hello, shadows, my old friends. You've crept up on me once again. The shorter days and longer nights cast long shadows in the evening light. At this time, both witches and muggles turn to cozy things and snuggles, as well as all the spooky things that autumn inevitably brings. The darkest time is all but here, a powerful time on the wheel of the year. And as the veil begins to thin, the cold and darkness settle in. Now's the time for divination, for costumes, sweets, and celebration. A time of shadow work as well, to conjure up a clearing spell. Out with the old to make way for the new, blessing our home with a fall-scented brew. Time to put our gardens to bed and compost all that now is dead. This season, we bravely face our fears and bid farewell to the passing year. The theme of death isn't always tragic, for letting go is the strongest magic. So at this time of letting go, I invite you to let your magic show. May your shadow time be charmed and fun, for there's a little witch in everyone. November's Eve, aka Samhain, Halloween, or All Hallows' Eve, is the third and final harvest festival on the Wheel of the Year, celebrated around November 1st. The midpoint between the autumn equinox and the winter solstice is a time when the days are being consumed by longer, colder nights. The late autumn time, when the very last of the harvest was brought in for winter, was always riddled with themes of death, darkness, and mystery. The Celtic pagans of the distant past called it Samhain, or summer's end. It was a time to communicate with the ancestors and muse about what lay on the other side of the veil of death. In Christian times, the Church adapted this theme into All Hallows' Eve, a time to acknowledge the souls of those who had passed away. The modern adaptation is, of course, Halloween, a pop culture holiday in which we toy with the ideas of what humans are most afraid of. Mexico celebrates the Day of the Dead, which emphasizes not the fear factor, but the honoring of those loved ones who have passed out of this world and into the next. My three favorite themes to focus on this time of year are death, ancestors, and darkness. In modern society, we go to great lengths to overlook the concept of death, so it may come as a surprise that our ancestors dealt very closely with death and amassed their most prominent celebrations and spiritual beliefs around this subject. In secular culture, we avoid thinking about the end of our lives on Earth, but almost every ancient spiritual teaching focused on the transition from this world into the next. At this time of the year, when it's said that the veil to the other worlds is thin, it's the perfect time to actually ponder the mystery of death rather than ignoring it. Some questions to ask yourself around the theme of death this season. How have I experienced the concept of death in my life, be that literal or the metaphorical death of past versions of myself or paradigms of my life? Is there anything in my life right now that I feel is ready to die to create space for new experiences in the coming year? Along with the theme of death, the mind naturally wanders to the memory of those who have passed on. In ancient times and in indigenous cultures today, there's a great emphasis on remembering the ancestors. During the late fall season, we can take this time to recall those who came before us and reflect on our physical and spiritual lineage. Whether we were close to them in life or not, everyone alive today only exists because of the ancestors who survived and passed their genes and wisdom down to each of us. Some questions to ask yourself around the theme of ancestors this season. What comes to mind when I think of the term ancestors? My familial ancestors who I know and can name? The thousands of biological ancestors in my line who I cannot name? Or even the concept of collective ancestors, any ancient cultures that I feel intuitively connected with? How do I or can I honor any or all ancestors this season or in the year ahead? In November, the shortening of the daylight hours becomes impossible to ignore. We're becoming acutely aware that the darkest part of the year is closing in on us. It's at this time that we intuitively begin to reflect on the darker aspects of our human experience as well. Shadow work is the practice of facing the parts of ourselves that we have not yet healthily integrated into our holistic view of self. Shadow aspects include our fears, guilty pleasures, and the parts of our personality or past that we're not necessarily proud of. We owe it to ourselves to be conscious of these things and find a healthy way to give them a voice in our spiritual practice. Otherwise, they will haunt our steps, preventing us from manifesting our dream life. Some questions to ask yourself around the theme of darkness this season. What am I afraid of? Or what are some of my least favorite things about myself, my life, or my past? In what ways can I playfully integrate these fears and frictions into my life and provide a healthy outlet for that dark energy? So, what are your favorite things about the November's Eve season? Are you planning to journal on any of the topics from this video? If so, I would love to invite you to join me for a seasonal journaling adventure this fall. Here's how. First, you can just download the printable PDF files of the grimoire pages you saw in this video from the Writing Witch shop. Your download will include all of the November's Eve information discussed in this video, as well as journal prompts and space to write about your relationship with the season. You also get access to 4 different printing options: color and black and white, the black and white version being great for saving on ink and getting to decorate the pages yourself, and full binder sheets or smaller folded booklet templates for junk journaling. You get to print these out as many times as you want for your own personal use, so if you want to do binder pages in color this year for an instant option, you can. And then next year, if you decide you want to get more crafty with your grimoire, you can print out the junk journal template versions. Doing these same journal prompts each year in different journals or as binder refills has helped me and my Writing Witch patrons to uplevel our capacity to experience fulfillment each year. And I want you to get to experience this magic too. Are you also looking to connect with myself and other magical mavens as you embody your most fulfilled version of yourself this year? If so, then I would love to invite you to join us on Patreon. You'll get access to November's Eve themed grimoire pages on how to manifest your most fulfilling fall season. And in our Patreon community, we're about to start our late autumn seasonal living challenge, where we connect with kindred spirits with discussion prompts. Each season from now on, we'll be holding a challenge for the 5 weeks surrounding the 8 Sabbats of the Wheel of the Year. Every Wednesday for 5 weeks per Sabbat season, I'll be posting a prompt to help you maximize your fulfillment by harnessing the themes of the Sabbat. The prompts I'll be posting each week correspond to the prompts included in my printable journaling pages. Even if you're shy and would prefer not to post on our private patrons-only posts, I still invite you to join in and do the prompts in your own mind or your own journal. The personal benefit of reflecting on these prompts is so powerful in any case. So if you're not already an eligible patron, I invite you to sign up now. I'm so excited to get to know you better as we share our experiences with the seasons and grow as a magical community. I hope to see you there.